Om Namo Narayanaaya. Om Namo Narayanaaya.
श्रीशैलेश दयापात्रं दीभक्त्यादिगुणार्णवं यतीन्द्रप्रवणं वन्दे रम्यजामातरं मुनिम् लक्ष्मीनाथसमारम्भां नाथयामुनमध्यमाम् अस्मदाचार्यपर्यन्तां वन्दे गुरुपरम्पराम् यो नित्यम् अच्युतपदाम्बुजयुग्मरुक्मव्यामोहतस्तदितराणि तृणाय मेने अस्मद्गुरोर्भगवतोऽस्य दयैकसिन्धोः रामानुजस्य चरणौ शरणं प्रपद्ये लोकाचार्याय गुरवे कृष्णपादस्य सूनवे संसारभोगिसन्दष्टजीवजीवातवे नमः।
शैलेशदया पात्रं धीभक्त्यादिगुणार्णवं यतीन्द्रप्रवणं वन्दे रम्यजामातरं मुनिम् लक्ष्मीनाथसमारम्भां नाथयामुनमध्यमाम् अस्मदाचार्यपर्यन्तां वन्दे गुरुपरम्पराम् यो नित्यमच्युतपदाम्बुजयुग्मरुक्मव्यामोहतस्तदितराणि तृणाय मेने अस्मद्गुरोर्भगवतोऽस्य दयैकसिन्धो रामानुजस्य चरणौ शरणं प्रपद्ये लोकाचार्याय गुरवे कृष्णपादस्य सूनवे संसारभोगिसन्तष्टजीवजीवातवे नमः। We continue with the sutra number 26 onwards. இவையெல்லாம் நமக்கு நம்பெருமாள் பக்கரிலே காணலாம். So I interpreted it as Nam Perumal, that is the Namperumal of Srirangam, whereas Swami Manaval Bhavani has interpreted it as the residing deities of all the chosen Divya Deshas or 108 Divya Deshas. இக்குணங்களெல்லாம் அச்சாவதாரத்திலே காணலாமோ என்று அருளிச் செய்கிறார். So in the earlier sutras we saw that the word Narayana is interpreted in this context as having the 6 qualities of Jnana Shakti. These Vatsalyam, Swamitvam, Saushilyam, Saurabhyam, Jnanam, Shakti. So these are the 6 qualities that are enumerated as the meaning of the word Narayana. And then he says, Idarke Elladinam Archavataram. All these qualities can be also identified in the Archa form of the Supreme Lord also. Then the question is raised as to can these qualities be identified in the Archa form of the Lord? Then he says yes, they can be definitely identified in the Archa form of the Lord. That is what he actually explains. திருக்கையிலே பிடித்த திவ்யாயுதங்களும் வைத்தஞ்சலன் நகையும் கவித்த முடியும் முகமும் ஒருவனும் ஆசன பத்மத்திலே அழுத்தின திருவடிகளுமாய் நிற்கிற நிலையே நமக்கு தஞ்சம். இவையெல்லாம் நமக்கு நம்பெருமாள் பக்கலிலே காணலாம். அதாவது சௌகரியாபாதகமாகவும் காரியாபாதகமாகவும் சொன்ன குணங்களெல்லாம் இவை காண்கையாலே அபேட்சையுடைய நமக்கு காண்கையிலே அபேட்சையுடைய நம்முடைய பெருமாள் பக்கரிலே காணலாம் என்கை. பெருமாள் பக்கரிலே குணங்களுக்கு பிரகாசங்களாயுள்ள சொல்லி இவற்றுடனே நிற்கிற நிலையே நமக்கு தஞ்சம் என்கிறார். திருக்கையிலே என்று தொடங்கி, அதாவது காரியகரத்துவோபயோகியான ஞான சக்திகளுக்கு பிரகாசகமாம்படி திருக்கைகளிலே தரித்துக் கொண்டிருக்கிற சங்க சக்கராதி திவ்யாயுதங்களும் Vatsalya Prakashakamana Prakashakamambadi Vaitanjalanna Kayyum Swamitva Prakashakamana Kavitya Mudiyum Kaushilya Prakashakamana Muhabum Muruvalum Anavarkum Kandi Patralam Padiyana Saurabhya Prakashakamaha Asana Padmatre Aduthina Thiruvadihalumai Kondu Elundarudi Nilkira Nilaire Ananyagati Kadana Namakka Rakshakam Yengai. So some extremely important concepts are dealt with in this context. So I am sure you have had the darshan of several deities in several Divya Deshas, which are ancient and also relatively not so ancient. So in all the places you see the Lord having this content chakra, these two. Then Abhaya Hasta and Varada Hasta in some place, Gada Hasta in some place. Then also several other features that are standard in all the iconic forms of Lord Vishnu or Narayana. So have you ever wondered why these particular weapons that are depicted in most of the common most common features of the iconic form of the Lord? Actually, when you talk about the different forms of the Lord, like you say Keshava, Narayana, Madhava, Govinda, etc., I think you have also come across the explanations Chatushchakram Namasyami Keshavam Kanakaprabhum, etc., where Lord Keshava is featured as having four chakras. In another context, Lord Vishnu's form is depicted as having Shankha Chakra, Gada and Padma. Shankha Chakra and Gada are very common. Sometimes instead of Abhaya Hasta, you have the Padma Hasta or the having a lotus in one hand, etc., etc., etc. Then what does this hand? This is the what is known as Abhaya Mudra in Sanskrit. Abhaya Mudra is don't fear, I will protect you. So in several places of in the Tamil Nadu area, they will also have these alphabets, Mahashuchaha, that is fixed on the Abhaya Hasta of the Lord. I don't know whether you have had an opportunity to notice it. Sometimes you may see but not look, like they say in English. Many times, even the very standard question answered. Many times people visit Srirangam and have the. Yes, you are absolutely right. Yes. Many times a question is raised. People go to Srirangam and come. Then they will say, we had wonderful darshan. That they said they will wax eloquent about how they had the darshan, etc. But after some time, if you ask whether the Mula Murti, this Mula Murti, I think you can understand, so I'll not explain that. Whether Mula Murti has 4 hands or 2 hands. I think I don't remember. Probably he has 4 hands. So they will see so many, they will enjoy the place and all those things. But they will not even have, they will not even remember. They will not even remember whether the Mula Murti has 4 hands or 2 hands. That means our memory is so sharp. Anyway. So here what Billalokacharya, Swami Billalokacharya does is, he says the iconic form has these features of having a Abhaya Hasta and for the different weapons, then the beautiful, slightly lowered head of the Supreme Lord, etc., which are the which in fact manifest these 6 gunas. Saushilya, Saurabhya, Vatsalya, Jnana, Shakti, etc., which have been explained just now. So, which feature of the iconic form depicts the which quality? He is very beautifully explained in detail in this context. So he says, कार्यकरत्वोपयोग्यान ज्ञान शक्ति प्रकाशमां पडीत तिरुक्कै हिडिदे धरित्तु कोंडिरुक्किर शंखचक्रादि दिव्यायुधंगणम्. So as I said, Jnana, Shakti, Swamitva, Saushilya, Saurabhya and Vatsalya. So these are the 6 qualities with which we have already explained their meaning, etc. in detail. So he says, Jnana and Shakti, these are the 2 most important qualities that are applicable in the present context. Because those are the 2 qualities that help the Supreme Lord accept the Jivatma or individual soul despite all his sins. So the weapons like Shankha, Chakra, etc., especially Shankha and Chakra, this is the content they discuss, are the depiction of Jnana and Shakti. This is very important. So the Sudarshana Chakra is the Jnana Shakti, or the divine power that the Supreme Lord possesses. Once again, as I said, it's not, of course, in Mahabharata and Bhagavatam, we have several instances where the Supreme Lord uses, the Lord Krishna uses the Sudarshana Chakra, and he kills his enemies like Shishupala, Dantavakra, etc. So we see that only in Krishna Avtara. Of course, in Rama Avtara, we don't see that because he appeared totally as a human being. He thought himself to be a human being. He says, I have never realized that I am the incarnation of the Lord. Because if he were to realize himself, then he would not have been considered as a human being. And the main criteria for killing a person killing Ravana is he should be a human being. Because Ravana had taken a boon that he should be killed only by a human being and not anybody else. So the Supreme Lord appeared as a human being as far as his realization is concerned. That is why when after the slaying of Ravana, when Brahma, Indra and all the deities come in front of Rama, he says, Atmanam Manusham Manye Ramam Dasharathatmajam. Koham Kasya Kuto Aham Bhagavam Stadbravitam. So he says, I believe myself to be an ordinary human being who is the son of Dasharatha. Atmanam Manusham Manye. But if I am the form of some divine being, you please let me know who I am. That's what Rama says after he kills Ravana, when he addresses the gods. Then there is a beautiful event where Lord Brahma actually propitiates Rama. It's called Brahmakrita Ramastava. It's there in the Mahabharata or Bhagavatam also. Here also it is there, Brahmakrita Ramastava, that is the stotra of Rama by Lord Brahma. So in that he says, Sita Lakshmi Bhavan Vishnu. Sita is none other than Goddess Lakshmi, and you are none other than Lord Vishnu. So that is one aspect. But in Mahabharata, it is well known that Lord Krishna very well knows that he is the Supreme Lord. So he openly uses his Sudarshana Chakra. So when he kills Shishupala, when he kills Dantavakra, and it is also said when he actually blocks the orb of the sun during the Jayadratha Vadha. I don't know whether you are familiar with that story. So like that, he uses his Sudarshana Chakra extensively in many instances. So there we know that the Sudarshana Chakra serves multiple purposes. And also the Shankha. So the Shankha or the conch, it is very significant because of its Pranavanada, the sound that emanates, divine mystical sound Om that emanates from the Shankha of the Pranava. And also due to its very, very, very soft touch, etc. Because as you know in Srimad Bhagavatam, as you know it is mentioned in Srimad Bhagavatam, when Dhruva performs penance to get the divine vision of the Supreme Lord, what does Lord Narayana or Vishnu appear before him and do? He touches him very gracefully with his Shankar conch. And he makes him come out of the divine state in which he is. Of course, he continues to be in a higher divine state, but he says, "No, I have come before you, you please see me." So to awaken him from whatever state he is, he actually touches him with the Shankha. Then we also know that the Shankha is used to blow. So it is called Panchajanya, and in the Mahabharata war, Krishna says, "I will not touch any weapon." But there is nothing that prevents him from blowing his divine conch. So Panchajanyam Rishikesha, Devadattam Dhananjeha, Omdam Sagoshodhartarashtrana, Hridayani Yadaveti. Just by listening to the sound of the conch of Lord Krishna, all the Kauravas, they lost their lives at that moment itself. Because the Shankhanada, the Nada, the sound, that divine sound that emanates from the Shankha is such that it is so soothing and it is so liberating, and also it is so nice for his devotees to listen. Whereas for those who dislike him and those who have disdain for him, it is so fiery, it is so fearsome that they get afraid and they will even lose their lives. And incidentally, there is a very beautiful shloka by, that is a verse by Andal. She actually compares herself with the divine conch of the Lord. She actually addresses the conch, though the conch is an inanimate object. She addresses the conch and says, "Oh, how lucky you are, because you are always having the privilege of the touch of the body of the Lord. And when he actually blows you, you are fortunate enough to be associated with his lips." So she actually she has composed more than 10 stanzas comparing herself with the conch of the Lord, and she says, "I am not blessed enough even as much as the conch of the Lord is blessed." And she says, how, as I said just now, how lucky you are to have been associated with the divine mouth of the Lord, divine lips of the Lord, which are always clean, because the divine Sharira, the Divya Mangala Vigraha of the Supreme Lord is that it does not have any dirt at all whatsoever. Whereas the human body contains so many types of dirty objects. Of course, if we have to leave, we cannot do away with it. Until we leave, we all have to be associated with dirty object because of urination, etc. And also we have dirt in our mouth, etc. It smells. So every day you have to brush your teeth, you have to you have to rinse your mouth every now and then, etc., etc. But the Lord is not like that. He is divine. So he does not have these problems of consuming food like us and then throwing out the waste material, etc., as the human body does. So he says how divine his divine body is, his Divya Mangala Vigraha is. And he says how lucky you must be, this conch should be, because he says several features about the divine concept. Anyway, so here what Puladokacharya says is the Shankha, Chakra and other ayudhas or weapons are depictive of the two gunas of Jnana and Shakti. So these they help they enable or they are the instruments of the Lord that can achieve whatever the Lord wants to achieve. So these two are depictive of the two qualities of Jnana and Shakti. Karya karatvopayogyana shakti hedak prakashakamam piditirik dharit kondirikira shankha chakradi divyayudhanganam vatsalya prakashakamam padi vaitanjalanna kayyum. So the Abhayahasta is what depicts the Vatsalya. So don't worry, I'll protect you, I'll protect you, I'll protect you, I like you, I like you. So this is Abhaya. Bhaya is fear. So don't fear. Don't be afraid of anything. I am here to protect you. So when you say that, that means he has utmost love, utmost affection for us. In fact, I am reminded of a very beautiful story my Acharya used to tell. So once there was a war, and in that war, many times what used to happen is the enemies who did not have the values of having respect for the women of the enemy's camp, etc. They used to come and we have heard about it in several instances during the invasions that happened. I don't want to name that religion. So at that time, they used to misuse the women, etc., of the persons whom they had defeated, and that too defeated by deceit and unfair means. I don't want to name that religion. I think you may be able to know easily which religion it is. So where they feel those who do not belong to the religion as kafirs and things like that. So at that time, what happened? A woman who had just given birth to her child was separated from the child. So in Kannada, they say "Thai kallu," the pangs of attachment a mother has towards a son is unmatched. So though father loves his daughter, or husband loves wife, wife loves husband, etc., which are all very, very pure instances or great instances of affection, there is no comparison between the affection a mother has for her son. That too, generally, if a son is newly born, she cannot be separated from the son even for 1 moment. So it so happened that the mother got separated from her newly born son. She was so worried, she was so sad that she could not even, she was about to even give up her own life because she cannot bear the pangs of separation with her newly born son. Then suddenly what happens? By the grace of God, somebody says, I have found a newborn baby, is it yours? Then she finds her, then she sees the body, a boy, a young baby is just born, and she realizes that it is her own son. She is once again so ecstatic that she kisses the young child all over the body. And she hugs it and shares all types of love that on the child, on the newborn infant, that there is no bounds for her joy, that she enjoys it so much that she is reunited with her newly born baby. So at that time, a great saint was there. He says, can you measure in any manner the affection and love that the mother is showering towards the young born infant? Can you, by all human means, separate the child from the mother? Can you convince her to be separated? Of course, physically, by force, you can separate. That's not the issue. Can you convince the mother to separate herself from the infant, even for one moment? She will say, no, I will give up my life, but I will not give up my association with this young born infant because I want to be with it. I cannot at all separate it because it is born out of my own womb. It has shared my blood for 9 months or a few days more or less. So it has eaten from my whatever food I have taken, it has gone to that baby. So I may even give up my life by it and not separate myself from this young infant. This is the sort of love that the mother has towards the young infant. Then he says, are you curious why I am mentioning it? Then he says, see, the Supreme Lord has 1,000 times more love than the mother is showering on her infant child now towards us, the Jivatmas. It is immeasurable. But the problem is we don't realize it. That is why in Bhagavad Gita, Lord Krishna says, Pratijame priyosime. My Acharya used to say this several times and say, see, even how much the Lord is at pains to prove that he likes us. Do we realize it? We Jivatmas are individual souls, we don't realize at all. So the Lord has to go to the extent of swearing. He says, Pratijane. Pratijane means I am doing a pratigna. I am swearing that I like you, that you are very dear. So unless we realize that the Lord likes us and we are very near and dear to him, we cannot progress in spiritual. So that's why he says, Kavita mudiyum tirik anjalinna tirik. So he says, Vaitanjalinna vatsyam Vatsalya prakashakamam padi vatvaitanjalinna kayyum. Then Swami. So this is the most important significance of the Abhaya Mudra. So that is, don't fear, I am here to protect you. And I love you. I have utmost affection for you. And then Swamitva Prakashakamana Kavita Mudiyam. Then to show that he is the Supreme Lord, he also has the beautiful he possesses the beautiful kirita, that is the crown. Crown is always worn by a person who has Swamitva, who possesses the lordship. So the divine crown on his divine head stands for Swamitvam, as you have rightly mentioned. Then Saushilya Prakashakamana Muhamam Muruvalum. So what depicts the Saushilya? Easy approachability. So that is Muhamam Muruvalum. If you see all the deities, especially the most exalted Divyadeshas like Srirangam, then Kanchipuram, Melkote also, and also in Tirupati. The Lord is having a very, very, very beautiful, but not very open, not very closed, a very, very small type of smile. So we call it as Mandasmita in Sanskrit. So Swami Parashara Bhattar very beautifully explains, extols the beauty of the divine iconic form of Lord in Sri Rangam. He says, Abjanyasta Padabjam Anchitakati Samvadi Kausheyakam Kinchittandavagandhi Samharanakam Nirvyajamandasmitam Chuda Chumbi Mukhambujam Nijabhuja Vishranta Divyayudham Shrirange Sharadashatam Shapatataitah Pashyema Lakshmi Sakham. Extremely beautiful depiction of the beauty of the Lord of Shiva. And it is extra, it applies to all the major Divyadeshas, all the Divyadeshas, especially the major Divyadeshas. Because the iconic forms of these Divyadeshas are extraordinarily beautiful. These four Divyadeshas especially. So he says, Nirvyaja Mandasmita. So Mandasmita is a small smile, where when you say something like that, of course, it's very, we should not try to imitate the Lord. So the smile where the teeth are not seen. So, but you recognize the smile. So it's called as Mandasmita. And it says Nirvyaja Mandasmita. That's what, without any specific reason, the Supreme Lord is having such a very, very wonderful smile, which is not, that is in Tamil they call it as Ponshirip. Ponshirip is a very slight smile. You don't feel that the Lord is laughing at you, because people actually expose their teeth, etc. when they laugh, or some people try to laugh without exposing their teeth, etc. It's nothing to do like that. It's not, that is why laughing is an effect of hasya rasa or some jokes or something. It's not like that. So he says it is nirvyaja mandasmita. It has to be explained in great detail. I will not do it now. But he says, Abjanyasta Parabjam Anjitakati Samvadi Kausheyakam Kinchittandavagandhi Samharanakam Nirvyajamandasmitam Chuda Chumbi Mukhambujam Nijabhuja Vishranta Divyayudham Shrirange Sharadashatam Tataitah Pashyema Lakshmi Sakham. So for hundreds of years, let us worship the friend of Goddess Lakshmi. Not only he is the Lord of Goddess Lakshmi, he is also the friend of Goddess Lakshmi. That's why there is a beautiful saying in Sanskrit. So it says, Vidya Mitram Pravaseshu, Bharya Mitram Griheshu. So when you are on a tour, it is your knowledge that is your friend. Because you will be respected for your knowledge wherever you go. But it was in those days because people all over the place were knowledgeable. Today people have lost their knowledge, so they don't know how to respect knowledgeable persons. But even then, even today, knowledge has some value wherever you go, which I am realizing in a small way, because I don't know, I may have some very an iota of knowledge with regard to some things. So, Bharya Mitram Griheshu. When you are at home, it is your wife who is your friend. So, the Lord Narayana is not only the consort, or he is not only the husband of the Lord, he is also the friend of the Lord. That's why he says, Swami Parashara Bhatta says, Tataitaha Pashyema Lakshmi Sakham. He says, we have the divine darshan of the Lord Ranganatha, who is the friend of Goddess. Then, Soshilya Prakashakamana Muhamum Murum Anaivarkum Kandi Pattalam Padiyana Saulabhya Prakashakamana Asana Padmatile Adittina Turivadi Adamai Kundu. Another very unique feature of the Supreme Lord is the divine feet that are pressed on the on a divine lotus. So in all Divya Deshas, you can have the darshanam, or you can see directly the divine feet of the Supreme Lord. So it is very, very, very important that we have the darshan of the feet of the Supreme Lord, because it is the feet that protect us. So we actually beseech the Lord through the feet of the Lord. Of course, even if you are associated with his hand or any other portion of his divine Divya Mangala Vigraha, it doesn't matter. But the Lord is so high, he is high in the sense, he is so large, he is so exalted, that the only limb of his that we can approach are his divine feet. So everybody can seek refuge in the feet of the Lord, irrespective of his caste, creed, sex, nationality, age, position in society, etc. So irrespective of any other criteria or any criteria, it is the Lord's feet that provide us refuge. And it is our duty. It is our bounden duty, or it is also our great privilege that we can approach the Supreme Lord's feet, divine feet. So the divine feet are predictive or depictive rather of the beautiful quality called Saulabhya, that is easy approachability, as I mentioned just earlier. எழுந்தருடி நிற்கிற நிலையிலே அரண்யகதிகளால் நமக்கு ரக்ஷகம் என்கை. So that too, in the most of the Divya Deshas, he is in the form of, so they call it as Nindra Tirukkuram. So there are three forms of Lord Vishnu when we have his darshan in the iconic form. One is as if he is asleep, that is Shayana Tirukkuram, they say. Another is Nindra Tirukkolam, that is where he is in the form of in a standing posture. And the other thing is Vitranda Tirukkolam, which means he is in the sitting posture. So sometimes when he is in the sitting posture, we may not be able to have the darshan of his feet easily. So when he is in the standing posture, we definitely have the darshan of his divine feet. So he says, Nirkira Nilaile, that is, we are able to have his darshan in the iconic form, which is in the standing posture. Of course, equally important is the sleeping posture, because it has its own beautiful significance, because we call him as Ranganatha. Ranganatha means Ranga is the stage. So he is the master of the stage. What is that stage, etc.? It's a very, very, very deep matter to be known and also to discuss. Why is he called Ranganatha? What does Ranga mean? So we call him Ranganatha, Rangaprabhu, or Rangaraja, etc. So Ranga means, the literal meaning of Ranga is the stage. So he is the master of the stage. Which stage? Why is he called the master of the stage, etc.? It's a very, very important thing that we have to know. Whereas Venkatesha is, you can easily understand, Venkata means a particular hill that rids us of all our sins. Vem papam katayati iti Venkata. Then Kanchi also, you call it as Hasti Shaila, because it is mentioned in the Puranas that the different elephants used to come and offer their puja to the Supreme Lord who was on it's a very small hill in the sense it's not a hill at all, but it's just having 18 steps. Of course, it has a lot of significance. Let us not worry about that now. And in Melkote also it is a hill. But why is he called Ranganatha is a very difficult, very deep meaning, which you have to understand in a very difficult, in a very in the proper manner actually. But that I'll try to explain some other time. Why Ranga and why is he sleeping? So what does that sleeping pose signify? Because can a person not sleep all the time? If a question is asked, what is the answer? Nobody can be sleeping all the 24 hours. Then why is the Lord depicted as sleeping, that too on a serpent? What does the serpent signify? It's a very, very deep meaning. But once again, when you see the Utsavamurti, the Utsavamurti is in the standing form. He is not in the sleeping form. In any place, wherever you go, whether it is Chitrakutam or in several places where the Moolamurti is in the sleeping form, Utsavamurti is always in the standing. These are all subtle nuances that we have to understand. Generally, we don't know. We don't even notice or we don't even question why is it so. But it has a very deep secret. Even when you see the Ahobalam, the Moolamurti is in the form of Narsimha. But the Utsavamurti is like a very other Divyadesha. So though we call him as Narsimha, the Utsavamurti is they say Prahlada. They are absolutely right. So why not Utsavamurti also in that same form? So, but in the Ahobala Matam, which has the Utsavamurti, there the Utsavamurti also is in Narsimha form only, and also in that original icon itself, there is a Paduka or the sandals. That means he is ready, he is always supposed to move around, which he is doing until this day. So these are all the nuances that one has to understand. Anyway, yeah, of course, ready to come to us. So this is how the iconic form is very, very significant as far as the protection of us, the individual souls, are concerned. Rakshakatvam bho rakshakatva bhogyatvam gadirandum tirumeni totum upayope nishtara apekshitamanavakaram gadirandum கீழ் சொன்னபடியே நிற்கிற திருமேனியிலே தோற்றும் என்கிறார் ரக்ஷகத்வ போக்கியத்துவங்கள் இரண்டும் தோற்றும் என்று அதாவது ரக்ஷக பரிகரமான திவ்யாயுதங்களோடும் ரக்ஷணத்துக்கு கவித்த முடியுடன் கூடியிருக்கையாலே ரக்ஷகத்துவம் தோற்றுகையாலே அணியாராழியும் ஜெங்குமேந்தும் முடிச்சோதியாயுள்ளது முகச்சோதி மலர்ந்ததுவோ என்கிறபடியே அவைதானே அழகுக்கு குடலாய் வைத்தந்தரென்ன கையும் முகமும் ஒருவனும் ஆசன பத்மத்திலே அழுத்தின திருவடிகளும் ஓராண்டே அழகுக்கெல்ல நிலமாயிருக்கையாலே போக்கியத்துவம் தோற்றுகையாலும் இரண்டும் திருமேனியிலே பிரகாசிக்கும் எந்தை ஆஹா நாராயண பதார்த்தத்தை அருளிச் செய்தாராய்த்து. So what he says in the 28th sutra is rakshakatva bhogyatvangal irandum thirumenile thottum. So the two qualities of rakshakatva and bhogyatva are well depicted in the divine iconic form of the Supreme Lord. What is this, etc.? We will enjoy the meanings in the next class. So I conclude with it now. Any questions?
Swami Ranganatha Priya Swami was asking about, he was saying Chenchulakshmi, Vedavalitaya, Rukmini Devi, Radha Devi, Tulsi Taya. How do they relate to Bhudevi and Sri Devi as far as being avatars or energies?
Please repeat the question.
So he's asking about different forms of the goddess. Chenchu Lakshmi, Vedavalitaya, Rukmini Devi, Radha, Tulasi. How do they relate to Bhudevi and Sri Devi? Are they Amsavatars or they're
See, these are all divine qualities of the Lord or divine consorts of the Lord, which are depicted as his the divine aspects which are depicted as his consorts. So, for example, now Swami Deshkan has depicted the quality of Daya or Kripa as his consort. So he has sung Daya Shatakar 100 slokas on the glory of the quality called compassion. So when compassion becomes personified in the human form, and compassion is one of the unique aspects of the Lord, it is depicted as a Devi. So he propitiates or he praises the compassion of the Supreme Lord by personifying that compassion as Daya Devi. So you have Daya Shataka. Then later another recent poet who had some divine vision. That poet has composed a very beautiful poetry about Daya in 1,000 shlokas. It is called as Daya Sahasra. Very, very beautifully it has been done. So the compassion of the Lord has no bounds. So 1,000 shlokas on the compassion is nothing compared to the greatness. So one may even sing 10,000 shlokas. Of course, ordinary persons like me may not be, like us may not be able to do it. So Tulasi, once again, what is Tulasi? It is one of the most liked aspects by the Supreme Lord. So you call Tulasi also a Devi. In fact, all of the Jivatmas are like the consorts of the Supreme Lord in the sense. Ultimately, we all owe our existence to the Supreme Lord. So that is why it is said, Sarve, what is that? There is a beautiful saying, I have mentioned that earlier. Stri praya itarat sarvam. That means so once again, it should not be compared to the today's, they may say, call these as male chauvinists or something like that. There is a they use a term called male chauvinism, where when you say so a female is supposed to serve the male, etc. If you say this, they will say male chauvinism. No, that's not the case. So the question of what is male and what is female, it is actually two aspects of creation. So sometimes the male aspect plays a major role. The female aspect plays a subsidiary role to the male in certain contexts. In certain other contexts, the male plays a subsidiary role to the female also. So it's not like who is superior, who is inferior. At the same time, it's not like gender equality or something like that. It's all the people talk about in the entire world today, which is totally foolish. Foolish in the sense you don't discriminate based on sex, that is male and female, but you have to distinguish. It's a distinction, not discrimination. There is a lot of difference between distinction and discrimination. So you have to distinguish. Otherwise, if you say males and females are equal, let whatever happen. So it will result in disaster. So there has to be proper regulation with regard to the behavior of males and females with regard to each. So in our Laukika Jivana or in the worldly affairs, it's different. Whereas in the divine plane or in the divine context, it is totally different. So all the Jivatmas are said to be subservient to the Paramatma. In that sense, he said Jivatmas are all three sense. He is the Kuman, he is the Lord, he is the husband of all the Jivatmas. But when a Jivatma becomes it reaches such an exalted state that it is considered to be a consort in all respects. So you have so many Tulasi Devi, Daya Devi, so many other Devis. So you have that is why Neela Devi, what is Neela Devi? My Guru used to beautifully say, Na Ila Neela. It should have been Neda according to Sanskrit, but it pronounced. So they have made it. So another Devi, another consort who is different from Bhumi Devi. So that is why Sri Devi is standard. Goddess Sri is standard. Other than that, there may be several consorts. So you have Daya Devi, Vatsalya Devi, etc., etc., etc. And even you can become a Devi because you are a Jivatma. And ultimately, in the Navavidha Bhakti, ultimate Sambandha, ultimate relationship is Satipati Bhava. Once again, that doesn't mean that you lose your independence or something like that. In fact, when you see the greatness of the Supreme Lord, you want to lose your independence. My father used to give a very beautiful example. Suppose Joe Biden or some great, some big person, not great person, some person who is holding a big office. He comes to your house and he is sitting in front of you. And he says, I have forgotten my specs in my car. You please bring it. 10 people will. I'll go. He is not commanding anybody. He says, can anyone bring? And 10 people will run. So that doesn't mean that they are subservient to him and they do it. No. If you feel that person is of a very high stature, automatically you feel like serving him. Then is it not natural that the Supreme Lord is supreme to all of us? When you see such a great person, automatically you feel like you want to serve him. So that is why when the Advaitins raise the question, even when you go to Vaikuntha, you people are engaged in servitude. So Seva Shvavritti Rakhyata. Servitude is always, it's a dark struggle for existence. So you people want to serve even if you go to Vaikuntha. Then we say Karma Paravashatvam Upadhihi. It is now what the question you are raising is not correct, because if servitude is due to your karma, then it is definitely bandhaka, it is definitely despisable. You don't feel happy at all. 90 people of the persons, of the subordinates, they don't like their boss. Boss doesn't like their employees. So they don't like their boss because they are serving him based on their own karma, only for the sake of money. Whereas if it is out of compassion, out of respect, etc., you feel so happy. So at least we say, sir, you are such a great person. Today you have accepted our hospitality. We are grateful to you. That means when servitude is done out of respect, done out of compassion, done out of your based on your own volition, it becomes so pleasurable. But when you think about the greatness of the Supreme Lord, He is the Lord of everything in this world. He is so compassionate. He is the possessor of all divine qualities. Then servitude unto Him gives you utmost happiness, utmost satisfaction. So there is nothing more happier than serving the Supreme Lord. So that is why we say, yes, even in Vaikuntha, we are servants. And there is no greater joy than being the servant of the Supreme Lord. So we accept that and say, yes, we are servants of Thee. So, any other question?
So sometimes you were explaining in the class about how the different ayudas and bhushanas of the Lord, ornaments and weapons, represent different aspects and different. So also when we see different archavigrahas, different deities in different temples with different consorts. Sometimes we see Paramapadanathan in Sri Rangam with Sri Devi, Bhudevi, and Neela Devi. And sometimes we see Sri and Bhu, and sometimes we see only Sri. And then with Lord Varaha, we see only Bhu. So is there yes. a difference?
So in that particular context, that particular consort is very significant. That's why only she is depicted.
And again, sometimes we hear that in Ramayana. Sometimes we hear that that Sita Devi is compared to Bhudevi because she is coming from the earth, but sometimes she's known as she's compared to Lakshmi.
That is based on some individual experience. Like now they say, see, we should not confuse these two things. Because in many contexts, Nammalwar is said to be a Nitya Samsari. And he attained the vision, he could have the vision of the Supreme Lord due to the Nirhetuka Kripa of the Supreme Lord. That's what is mentioned in some contexts. In some contexts, it is mentioned he is the avatar of such and such a deity. In some contexts, it is mentioned he is the avatar of the Supreme Lord himself. So these two should not be confused with each other. Because what happens is, when some divine aspects of Nammalwar are seen, he is like the Lord himself, we say. So in an emotional context, we say he is the incarnation of Lord himself. In an emotional context, we say he is an incarnation of Ishakshri, etc. So it is not a logical thing. For example, it is also mentioned in the Guru Parampara Prabhav. When Kurat Talwan was about to leave his physical body, he said, I will go to Vaikuntha and welcome Ramanujacharya. So I want to leave earlier. But will the person have this identity when he goes to Vaikuntha? If he has this identity of Kurat Talwan, this person, then how can he go to Vaikuntha? So he has mentioned it in an emotional sense. So that should not be taken as a logical statement. And one should not actually debate over it. So that is mentioned in an emotional sense, where he says, I will go to Vaikuntha anyway there. And then I will welcome Ramanujacharya because I am going earlier than him. So I will welcome. But then, if that person says, this is Kuresha, this is Ramanujacharya, how can they go to Vaikuntha? Will they retain their form? Will they retain their name? Will they retain all these features? No. If they are retaining, how can they go past this samsara mandala? So logical statements, the emotional statements should not be confused with logical statements. It's an emotional statement where he says, I'll go first and I'll welcome him. Yes. Emotionally, yes, it is possible. Logically, it's not possible. Factually also, it is not possible. But it has to be taken in an emotional sense. It's not a subject of logical debate.
Right. Then sometimes also we have some acharyas are saying that Radha is a personality, and some are saying that she's not a personality at all, but simply an idea of somebody who worships the Lord. And then others are talking about the Goda and Bhudevi being the same. And
that's what I said. So there are some are logical explanations, some are emotional explanations. So we should not confuse these two things. So there is a mention of Radha also. I was reading in Anangaracharya's book that there is a depiction of Radha, Neela as the daughter of one of the commandants of the Lord's army. So like that, there might have been some references. Once again, they should not be taken in a logical sense. So, as I said, every Jivatma is the consort of the Supreme Lord ultimately. It has to become, or it has to have that realization. So, Neela or Radha, some people equate Radha with Neela, but from what I understand, I don't know, you have to correct me. So, they say Radha is actually a paramour of Krishna. She is not the wife. So you should not equate Radha with others and things like that. So anyway, so it's not, as of now, whatever we say, it's not very clear to us because we don't have the divine vision. So if we have the divine vision, all these problems will get solved. Until then, we respect the sayings of our elders. That's all. It's as simple as that. Okay, so thank you very much. श्रीमते रामानुजाय नमः।
श्रीशैलेशदयापात्रम् धीभक्त्यादिगुणार्णवम् यतीन्द्रप्रवणम् वन्दे रम्यजामातरम् मुनिम् लक्ष्मीनाथसमारम्भाम् नाथयामुनमध्यमाम् अस्मदाचार्यपर्यन्ताम् वन्दे गुरुपरम्पराम् यो नित्यम् अच्युतपदाम्बुजयुग्मरुक्मव्यामोहतस्तदितराणि तृणाय मेने अस्मद्गुरोर्भगवतोऽस्य दयैकसिन्धोः रामानुजस्य चरणौ शरणम् प्रपद्ये लोकाचार्याय गुरवे कृष्णपादस्य सूनवे संसारभोगिसन्दष्टजीवजीवातवे नमः।
ॐ नमो